They banned a blind man's guide dog, called it dirty. The HOA stood firm even after a lawsuit. In the upscale gated community of Willow Creek, California, where every lawn was pristine and every house screamed luxury, 45-year-old Daniel Rivera had finally found a place to call home. Daniel, a software engineer who'd been blind since birth, relied on his golden retriever guide dog, Max, to navigate the world. Max wasn't just a pet. He was Daniel's eyes, his companion, his lifeline. Trained to perfection, Max guided Daniel through busy streets, helped him board buses, and even alerted him to obstacles in their new neighborhood after Daniel moved to Willow Creek in early 2024. The community seemed ideal, quiet, safe, and close to Daniel's new job at a tech firm in Silicon Valley. He felt hopeful for a fresh start, with Max by his side. But the Willow Creek Homeowners Association had other plans. The HOA president, 67-year-old Evelyn Harper, a wealthy widow with a disdain for anything she deemed messy, had long enforced a strict no pets policy in the community's common areas. The rule buried in the HOA bylaws stated, "No animals are permitted in shared spaces, including streets and sidewalks, to maintain cleanliness and order." It was meant for typical pets, but Evelyn interpreted it to include service animals, claiming they were just as dirty as any other dog. She ignored federal laws like the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, which explicitly protect the rights of people with disabilities to have service animals in public and private spaces, including HOAs. In March 2024, just a month after Daniel moved in, Evelyn sent him a letter citing the bylaw and demanding that Max be kept indoors at all times or removed from the community entirely. The letter warned of a $2,000 fine for noncompliance and threatened eviction if Daniel didn't comply. Daniel was stunned. He called Evelyn, calmly explaining that Max was a trained guide dog, not a pet, and that federal law protected his right to have Max with him. He even offered to provide documentation of Max's training and health records to prove the dog was clean and well-behaved. But Evelyn wouldn't budge. "I don't care what the law says," she snapped. "Dogs are dirty, and I won't have them tracking mud through my community. Keep it inside or get out." Daniel refused to comply. He couldn't. Max was essential to his independence, and keeping him indoors would mean Daniel couldn't leave his house safely. But every time he tried to walk Max through the neighborhood, Evelyn or her HOA enforcers were there, watching. One afternoon, as Daniel and Max approached the community gate to head to the bus stop, a security guard hired by the HOA blocked their path, pointing to a new sign, "No pets allowed." The guard told Daniel, "Your dog can't leave the property." Orders from the HOA. Daniel, feeling humiliated, had to turn back, missing a crucial meeting at work. That night, he found a $2,000 fine taped to his door, along with a notice threatening eviction if he didn't remove the animal within 72 hours. Daniel's story spread quickly. A neighbor, 32-year-old barista Chloe Adams, saw the confrontation at the gate and posted about it on X, writing, "The HOA just banned a blind man's guide dog. This is cruel." Justice for Max. The post went viral, gaining 7 million views in 48 hours, with the hashtag trending across the country. People were outraged, calling the HOA's actions discriminatory and inhumane. Local news stations in San Francisco covered the story, interviewing Daniel as he stood with Max, his voice steady but filled with frustration. "Max is my eyes. They're telling me I don't belong here because I'm blind." The reporter also spoke to a disability rights advocate, who called the HOA's rule a blatant violation of the ADA. The community rallied behind Daniel. Chloe organized a protest outside the HOA office, where dozens of residents gathered with signs reading, "Guide dogs aren't pets," and "Stop HOA discrimination." Some brought their own dogs, wearing vests that read, "I support Max," to show solidarity. Disability rights groups like the National Federation of the Blind offered legal support, and a GoFundMe page to help Daniel fight the HOA raised $15,000 in a week, with donors leaving messages like, "This is illegal," and "Shame on Willow Creek." The story gained national attention, with outlets like the New York Times and CBS running headlines like, "HOA bans blind man's guide dog," sparks outrage, and California community faces backlash over discriminatory rule. Daniel decided to sue the HOA with help from a pro bono lawyer, Laura Bennett, who specialized in disability rights. The lawsuit argued that the HOA's rule violated the ADA and the Fair Housing Act, which prohibit discrimination against people with disabilities, including restrictions on service animals. It sought to have the rule overturned, the fine dropped, and damages for emotional distress, as Daniel had developed anxiety from the constant harassment. The case drew a massive crowd to the courtroom, with supporters wearing yellow ribbons to match Max's fur. Laura presented evidence of Max's role as a guide dog, including training certificates and vet records, and brought in an ADA expert who testified that the HOA's actions were illegal. Daniel took the stand, his voice breaking as he said, "Max isn't a pet, he's my partner. They're taking away my independence." Evelyn, representing the HOA, showed no remorse. She claimed the no pets rule was meant to protect the community's cleanliness and argued that Daniel should have chosen a pet-free community if he needed a dog. She produced the bylaw and insisted that the HOA had the right to enforce its own rules, even if they conflicted with federal law. Shockingly, the judge, a conservative with a history of favoring property rights over federal mandates, ruled in favor of the HOA. He stated that the community's bylaws were a private contract that Daniel had agreed to when he moved in, and while the ADA applied to public spaces, the HOA had some leeway in private communities. The rule was upheld, the fine stood, and Daniel was ordered to pay the HOA's legal fees, an additional $6,000 burden. The ruling sent shockwaves through the community and beyond. Justice for Max trended again, with disability rights advocates calling the decision a dangerous precedent that could undermine protections for people with disabilities. Protests outside Willow Creek grew larger, with national organizations joining in, but Evelyn refused to back down. She issued a statement doubling down on the rule, saying, "We will not compromise our standards for cleanliness." Daniel, unable to live under such hostility, put his house on the market, vowing to find a community that accepted him and Max. As he packed, he left a yellow ribbon tied to his mailbox, a quiet symbol of the fight he'd lost but wouldn't forget. Willow Creek remained a battleground, with residents now living in fear of the HOA's unchecked power, and the nation watched in outrage, wondering how justice could fail so spectacularly.